Hello, this is Daniel Raymond, the voice behind Ray's Guide. 4.0.2 is live and in users' hand. It generally has been meeting people's expectations for stability, although there often seems to be just a momentary gap between when an elevator door is open and the elevator actually being there. Since few people's reaction time is that fast, it's more visually disconcerting than dangerous. I did have a C2 filled with copper get destroyed when the hangar doors pinched closed on them, forcing the ship to become impossibly wedged between the top and bottom tracks of the door. Very frustrating considering how scarce and valuable copper is in this event. But looking forward, we have 4.1 teased last week, and CIG is saying that they are hoping to send it to Evocati this week. So let's dig into what should be expected from 4.1. And right off the bat, I would have to say that I was underwhelmed at the roadmap roundup last week. My hopes were that the single dot releases would mean that there would be taking some of that huge graveyard of features removed late from the 4.0 release and take them from the big bucket of 1.0 and actually put them towards a feature set to be seen in the tech preview channel, as was suggested would happen. But instead, we saw the remaining items discarded from the 4.0 release dumped into the 1.0 bin. And as for 4.1, it might as well have been called 4.0.3 because it really is pretty much the same as 4.0.1 and 4.0.2. Some event-focused gameplay content and hopefully some more stability and bug fixes. So why call it 4.1 instead? I can only think that it's because they wanted to maintain the illusion of 4 significant quarterly releases, but to be honest, it seems sort of lame. But leaving all that aside, let's look at what we are expecting to see. First up, we see a mission giver. A new mission giver enters the verse, bringing fresh opportunities for players to explore. Now, we have seen mission givers come and go in the verse, lately mostly go, and honestly, I'm perfectly satisfied with them being a call on the mobile glass or a voiceover, like Elaine Ward or Tessa Bannister. But CIG wants to have physicalized mission givers, I think particularly because it's such a core of Squadron 42, and they want the two games to have a shared feeling. But what is really interesting is the entry for a specialized design location to host our latest mission giver, offering a new hub for players to engage in these opportunities. Typically, the locations of mission givers haven't been that significant. So, for example, when Recco Bertaglia was added in 3.3 or Clovis Darnley in 3.3.5 or Constantine Hurston in 3.4 or Tessa Pacheco in 3.5, there was no card for their locations. So there might be something unique going on here, and I think that what they might be doing is that they'll be using the instant hangar technology to give you your own meeting place. And so you don't have the problem of dozens of people all trying to meet at the same person at the same location, which is kind of an intrinsic problem with contact persons in an MMO. So imagine instead of just walking into Constantine Hurston's office from the trading floor, there's a little elevator, and the little elevator takes you to your own instanced version of his office. The second thing is an armor set, which I'm willing to guess will be some sort of event reward, either from completion or as loot. Then there is a set of space combat missions, a new set of ship combat missions featuring improved scenario design and refined storytelling. So I'm guessing that the 4.1 mission set will include some sort of PvE space combat elevators generated with the new mission generator system, and I'm suspecting given to you by the new instance mission giver. Then we have a Sandbox Activity, a new open-ended activity blending on-foot exploration with aerial support, creating sandbox gameplay opportunities for daring teams. That seems vague, except they tip their hand later under locations. Hathror ground alignment stations. Strategically placed Hathror-operated outposts providing key infrastructure and sandbox gameplay opportunities for planetary operations. So for the moment, my presumption is that the Sandbox Activity is the same in both descriptions. Which brings me to the last pertinent entry in 4.1, the Hathror Mining Station, a large-scale mining laser facility operated by the Hathror Group. So let's dig into the Hathror Group. And bear in mind that the Hathror Group lore entry was recently updated without any notice on February 7th. So presumably whatever retcon was needed for this release was part of that update. The current version reads, the Hathror Group was a human interplanetary mining concern that employed harsh, environmentally catastrophic techniques that left otherwise inhabitable planets desolate in the company's wake. It purchased the Nexus system from the United Nations of Earth, UNE, in 2468, strip mining the surface of LAGO, Nexus 4, and ignoring burgeoning criminal activity in the system. Following a run of bad investments and failed claims, the company invested the last of their funds into mining the recently discovered Stanton system in 2853. However, due to some unforeseen difficulties, they were forced to cease operations and the Hathror Group was formally dissolved in 2864. The prior version had no mention of the Hathror Group making last gasp investments in Stanton, and had them dissolving as a result of post-Messer-era environmental laws in 2801, 50 years before the discovery of Stanton. In this new timeline, Hathror Group arrived just 2 years after the discovery of Stanton, and 11 years later they dissolved in 2864. And then in the very next year, the UEE in 2865 opened bidding for selling the planets to their current corporate owners, at which time terraforming began. So based on it being 2955 today, those facilities are between 91 and 102 years old and have been abandoned for at least 9 decades. So let's look at our other exposure to the Hathror Group, and that was in Theaters of War, Crossroads of Crime. Theater of War was a combination arms extension of Arena Commander that got to the point of a couple of Evocati test runs before being shelved, in large part because the external firm that CIG was using to help build it, Firesprite, was purchased in whole by Sony. The setting for the first scenario of Theaters of War was Hathror Group's facilities on Nexus, which were abandoned in 2672 and taken over by criminal gangs. The scenario was based on events in 2931 when the UEE attempted to reclaim control over the system. In other words, at the time of Crossroads of Crime, the mining sites had been abandoned for much longer, 259 years, but presumably maintained during that time by the criminal elements. So, are we likely going to be seeing an exact implementation of the Theaters of War scenario in the 4.1 release? I don't think so. I wouldn't have described Theaters of War as a sandbox activity area. It was much more structured than that, with specific targets and waypoints. So there are a number of questions that I'm curious to see the answer to. Are these just ruins, or is someone actively trying to occupy and operate them? How would that even be allowed, considering their known environmental impact? Is there a way to play either side of whatever is happening? Where are the new locations at? Are they on Hurston or Microtech? Crusader being out for obvious reasons, and ArcCorp not having the same planetary technology as the other planets. Personally, I would suspect Hurston. Because of the environmental hazard of Hathor's mining operation, it would mean that Hurston's environmental devastation may have already been there and not entirely the blame of Hurston's weapons testing. Along the same line, Hurston wouldn't have been as bothered about bidding for that planet, as they had such limited plans for it. Anyhow, despite the fact that I think it more deserves to be called 4.0.3 than 4.1, I am looking forward to learning more of the answers to this when it gets to Evocati this week. And now for an update on my giveaways. First, we have our special giveaway for the captains of the dual VKB Gladiator joysticks, almost becoming finished. Also, we have our special skills contest for channel members to earn a Mirai Guardian or Misk Fortune. Then we also have the annual IAE Week giveaway coming up for the shiny stainless steel Sirius shipping ship, the Starlancer Max, and then the Grow the Channel ship giveaway at 20,000 subscribers for the winner's choice of the marvelous multi-role multiplayer mining meta, the Arasta, or the Benu Big Box Bargain Bazaar, the Merchantman. 1 entry per video. Members, you're entered automatically. Everyone else just subscribe and comment with the secret word. And the secret word for this video is the number that I think 4.1 could more accurately be called. Fly safe, keep it real, and I'll see you in the verse. This is Danny Raymond for Ray's Guide.